Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we're stepping way back in time to unpack a truly fascinating piece of ancient wisdom, the Devadhamma Jataka. I am absolutely pumped about this one, because, well, on the surface it reads like your classic mythological fable, right? Full of exiled princes, dangerous water demons, the whole shebang. But when you look a little closer, it's actually this brilliant masterclass on navigating difficult authorities, managing our own egos, and achieving some profound personal growth. It's an ancient story, but honestly, it packs a massive punch for our modern lives.
Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever been sitting there and a manager or maybe a peer gives you some constructive criticism and your immediate gut reaction is just pure, unfiltered defensiveness? Yeah, we've all been there. And believe it or not, the story we're looking at today centers entirely around a character who struggled with this exact same problem. We are talking about a monk who absolutely despised critical feedback.
Section 1. The Defensive Greedy Monk, a status quo of hoarding.
Our source material opens in ancient Stravasti with the Bahu Brandika monk, and that name literally translates to the monk with many possessions. Now, the Buddha had established a pretty strict ascetic ideal for his monks. We're talking a life of profound simplicity, with a hard maximum of just 3 robes. But our hoarding monk? He was living large. He had built up this incredibly comfortable setup with storehouses packed to the brim with expensive ghee and oils. He had servants cooking for him and an entire wardrobe of different robes for day and night. So naturally, when the other monks noticed this glaring discrepancy, they brought him directly to the Buddha.
So how does our hoarding monk handle this performance review from the ultimate authority figure? Well, not great. Confronted by the Buddha about his excessive possessions, the monk just completely loses it. He becomes furious. In this massive emotionally charged display of defensive anger, he actually rips off his outer robe right in the middle of the assembly. He's standing there, half naked, angrily shouting, "Is this how you want me to wander about?" He was entirely devoid of shame. It was just an extreme, wildly inappropriate overreaction to being called out. He was completely defenseless against his own wounded pride, which honestly just proved he desperately needed a major transformation.
Section 2. Entering the Fable, the Buddhist Masterclass. Instead of yelling back, the Buddha does something brilliant. He pivots to a story to hold a mirror up to the monk, taking us back to a past life. Let's map out this fable's journey. In the kingdom of Benares, King Brahmadatta has 2 elder sons, Prince Mahimsa and Prince Chandra. After their mother passes away, the king remarries and has a 3rd son, Surya. Now the new queen demands a previously promised boon, the throne for her son, Surya. The king refuses, but he realizes his elder sons are now in immense political danger from this scheming stepmother. So he exiles Mahimsa and Chandra to the forest for their own protection, telling them to return only after he dies. And young Prince Surya, showing incredible loyalty, he flat out refuses to take their place and follows his half-brothers into exile. Together, the 3 of them travel deep into the wilderness until they arrive at a mysterious pond.
Section 3. The Water Demon's Test. Facing the Guardian of the Pond.
Exhausted from their long journey, Mahimsasa asks young Surya to go fetch some water. But here's the catch. This pond is guarded by a terrifying water demon who was granted a deadly boon. He can consume anyone who enters the water and cannot define the divine law. Now, what's really interesting about this is the ruthless, almost bureaucratic interrogation procedure the demon follows to test his victims. It's a strict 3-step process. Step 1. A prince steps into the water and the demon immediately asks, "What is Devadhamma, the divine law?" Step 2. The victim gives an answer. If it's wrong, we immediately hit Step 3, where the demon mercilessly drags them underwater to be imprisoned and eventually eaten.
So first, Prince Surya goes in. The demon asks the question. Surya answers, "The sun and the moon." The demon tells him he's completely wrong and drags him under. When Surya doesn't come back, Mahimsasa sends Prince Chandra. Chandra steps in, gets asked the exact same question, and answers the 4 directions. He too is wrong, and boom, he's dragged under. Both younger brothers failed this critical test because they mistook external, cosmic forces for true internal virtue. They looked totally outside themselves for the answer.
Section 4. Defining True Virtue. The Wisdom of Prince Mahimsasa.
When his brothers don't return, Mahimsa investigates. He sees footprints going in, but none coming out. He quickly realizes a demon is involved, so he stands his ground and demands answers. And this brings us to the ultimate test. Challenged to define Devadhamma, Mahimsa delivers the correct answer. So the crucial point is that the divine law isn't the sun or the moon, or the wind, it's actually defined by two internal psychological pillars. Hiri, which is the internal shame of doing evil, and Otapa, the moral dread or fear of the consequences of doing wrong.
He tells the demon this absolutely beautiful quote, "Those who live endowed with shame and fear of evil, devoted to the good, they are said to possess Devadhamma." This brilliantly illustrates that true virtue requires internal moral accountability. You have to genuinely care about the impact of your actions. Think about how starkly this contrasts with our greedy monk from earlier in the explainer, the guy who literally threw off his robes in a shameless, defensive tantrum when held accountable. It's night and day. Section 5. The Prince's Righteous Choice. Honor over self-interest. The water demon is absolutely blown away by this wisdom. Bound by his own rules, he can't harm Mahimsa, but he offers a concession. He'll release just one captive brother. And who does the prince choose? Surprisingly, he doesn't choose his full-blooded brother Chandra. Prince Mahimsa chooses to save his youngest stepbrother, Surya. The demon is totally confused, right? He asks why on earth he wouldn't save his closest blood relative. Mahimsa explains his righteous logic. They're in this forest in the first place because of Surya's mother. If Mahimsa returns to the kingdom without Surya, the public will absolutely slander him, assuming he let the younger stepbrother die out of a greedy desire for power. To maintain true Devadhamma, to act with honor, shame, and a fear of wrongdoing, he has to protect his father's honor and prioritize the most vulnerable person, even at a massive personal cost.
This selfless display of virtue completely disarms the demon. He happily releases both brothers. But Mahimsa doesn't just take his brothers and run. He masterfully manages this incredibly dangerous authority figure. He actually rebukes the demon for his past evil karma of eating humans, warns him of the massive future suffering he's going to face in hell if he keeps it up, and literally converts this toxic monster into a protector of the righteous. Years later, when Mahimsa returns to rule the kingdom, he even builds a shrine for the demon, ensuring he's respected and fed without ever resorting to violence again. It is an absolute masterclass in resolving conflict through virtue and humility.
Let's move to Section 6 and see how this builds. Modern wisdom and transformation. Back to the present day.
As the Buddha finishes this incredible fable, the tension in the room is completely neutralized. And then he delivers one final revelation, the true identities of the characters. Prince Surya was reborn as Ananda, the Buddha's attendant. Prince Chandra was Sariputta, one of his chief disciples. The extremely wise Prince Mahimsa, that was the Buddha himself in a past life. But the absolute best twist, that ruthless, monstrous, flesh-eating water demon who desperately needed to be taught shame and humility, that was none other than the defensive, greedy monk sitting right in front of them. The parallel is just perfect. A difficult, stubborn entity transformed entirely by the introduction of moral accountability.
So, what does this all mean for us? Well, these ancient principles actually map perfectly onto our modern workplace challenges. When we're faced with criticism, we've got to accept constructive feedback humbly, without throwing a tantrum. Just like Mahimsa's choosing Surya, we need to prioritize team welfare and integrity over our own selfish egos. We have to actively overcome defensiveness through self-reflection, really cultivating that internal Hiri and Otapa. And when dealing with difficult authorities or toxic situations, we manage them not with explosive anger, but with respect, wisdom, and very clear boundaries.
And you know what? It worked. By using this story, the Buddha didn't just punish the hoarding monk, he educated him. Hearing this, our main character finally let his guard down. He completely abandoned his pride, deeply embraced the lesson of internal virtue, and the source material tells us he actually achieved Sotapanna, the first stage of enlightenment. He went from a defensive hoarder to an enlightened thinker, simply by learning to accept feedback with grace. That's a real game changer.
Which brings us to our final thought for today. The next time you're given tough feedback, or the next time you have to face down a difficult authority figure that feels an awful lot like a water demon, what will you do? Will you rip off your robes and react with pure defensiveness? Or will you take a breath, look inward, and lead with Hiri and Otapa? The choice is entirely up to you. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely can't wait to dive into the next topic with you.